Violinist Stephen Redfield is with us today. He has been a soloist with the MSO 5 times in the past 20 years, and most recently, of course, this past Saturday night when he performed Max Richter's Four Seasons. For 25 years, Stephen, you've been the professor of violin studies at USM, at University of Southern Mississippi. And it's a position that you've held at the same time, really, that you've had a really major career all over this country as a performer. Stephen performs as concertmaster of the Santa Fe Pro Musica. He's often the concertmaster and often the soloist with the Victoria Bach Summer Festival. He's concertmaster of the Arizona Bach Festival. And he studied at the University of Texas, Austin, at the Butler School. Before that, he did his graduate studies at Eastman School. And actually, we know each other for when we were at the University of Cincinnati, the Cincinnati Conservatory, many, many years ago. So welcome, Stephen. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much.
And gosh, where to start? I guess probably the best place for us to start will be Saturday night. Do you have any thoughts about what Saturday night was for you?
That was a wonderful experience. And thank you very much for inviting me to be a part of that. That piece is new to me and a new favorite now. And I loved doing it with you, Kraft, and I loved doing it with the musicians from the Symphony. It was a wonderful experience, beginning to end, rehearsals through the end of the performance. Really enjoyed it.
Well, you've of course played the original, the Vivaldi Four Seasons at this pace. This piece was kind of drawn from, not kind of, was drawn from and refashioned in a way. Any thoughts about a comparison, contrast, similarities of the two pieces, especially mainly as a performer? Both are very virtuosic pieces, of course.
They draw on different strengths, I think. And I appreciate that about each piece, that the Richter wasn't a carbon copy in any way or trying to be too close to the original, but was, as you said, sort of drawn from the original and went to different interesting places. I think it helped me to learn the Richter and to appreciate the Richter, to have known the Vivaldi Four Seasons so thoroughly as I do. And what I especially loved about it was its invitation to be creative, to find ways to develop an idea and a phrase over a long period of time with the influence of the shifting harmonies and textures around me. And I felt that really creative impulse on Saturday's performance in particular, that even in the moment of performance, I was really invited to experiment and explore, which doesn't always happen in a performance. There are many times in a performance when you just stick to the plan. You simply don't color outside the lines. But I really felt freed by this piece and by the I don't know, the platform that it provided and the comfort I had with you and with the orchestra.
Of course, we do know each other, and I would say that this piece is a piece that's new for both of us, and so I guess to some degree it's going to be forming itself over the first few performances that we do with it. But I too, we experienced it really for the first time at the dress rehearsal when we really got to read through. And I too found amazing things Saturday night that I totally did not expect. And I want to credit you. I want to thank you because I don't think there's any question that you led us, especially in the last couple of days of rehearsals and into the performance, to places that I don't think we would have even considered taking in quite the intensity that you brought to it. Some slower tempos, some real delicate, intimate moments. And I think you began to set some of those things up, and those moments, as well as the thrilling moments too, really you let us, and it allowed us to really let some of those things happen on Saturday night. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Super.
So
Absolutely. Thank you.
when you and I reacquainted ourselves with each other about 20 years ago, when I moved to Mississippi, you and I had known each other. It had been 15 years since you and I had been in school together. And it wasn't a surprise to me at all that your artistry, but what I did not see coming at all was the interest that you had developed in the meantime for early music. So I'm anxious. I gather that took place in graduate school. I'm wondering where and how did all that begin? Share that with us, would you?
I will. I, like a lot of modern players, had been playing Bach and other Baroque composers and Mozart and other classic period composers for all my life, but with a sort of an understanding that I was imitating an older style and using my modern instrument and my modern techniques to create something sort of outside of the modern idiom. And so I got a chance to play Mozart with a forte piano, something that you're going to hear tonight. And I enjoyed it so much. I felt like, oh, the balance and the blend is so natural. The dynamics make so much sense. The strokes seem to match better. And this was before I even had any change of equipment. I really just changed the pitch and I changed the instrument I was partnering with. And I changed the pitch only a little bit, which was a challenge, but a good challenge. Sort of broke my connection to modern playing when I just changed the pitch to 430. That's what is sort of accepted as commonly as classical pitch. Something a little bit lower. A is a little bit lower from our 440 today. A little bit higher than what they think A was 415 in the Baroque period. So an intermediary A. And once I did that, I was sort of, I'd caught the bug. And I thought to myself, if Mozart feels this good, I wonder how Bach will feel, or Handel, or Vivaldi. And I wonder if maybe having equipment that matched, I don't know, the stylistic changes I wanted to adopt would help. And so I did take a sabbatical from my job here in Hattiesburg. This came quite a lot later than graduate school. And I went to Holland and I studied Baroque violin with Lucy Vandal, who is a wonderful pioneer in early music practice. And so I did that for about 6 months, and it was just wonderful, life-changing, and I have pursued it ever since. I had a wonderful colleague here on the campus who some of you may know, Dana Ragsdale, who passed away nearly 10 years now. But she was my partner in crime, and she was a harpsichordist, and we just ripped through repertoire, and we gave concert after concert. And so that was also part of my jumping into the deep end of period playing. I never did stop playing modern, of course, and I taught modern, and I've done some Baroque teaching, but mostly continued to teach modern.
And of course, you played your modern violin on Saturday night. It's amazing, as someone who has done a little bit of early music, and of course, we perform a Baroque program each year with our orchestra, which is just a little tidbit, but it's amazing how even that little bit, how it will inform your approach to the more romantic repertoire. And when you go back to Beethoven and Mozart, how it does. And I was thinking, as you were talking about the Max Richter, how performing now the Max Richter Vivaldi Four Seasons, how that's going to inform both of us when we go back and on a Baroque violin, the original Four Seasons. Well, I want to pick right back up though with early music, because in fact the first music we're going to hear is music music from the Baroque period, from the early music period. In fact, it's Bach. It's unaccompanied Bach, and in fact, I think tell us a little bit about it. You're playing on a Baroque violin. Tell us a little bit about it, about the setup that you're playing on.
This violin comes from about 1850, and I'm using gut strings, which are old-fashioned unwound strings made of literally gut. They're made from the intestines of animals, and they're twisted to a gauge which works for the strings. And I play with an old-fashioned style bow as well. And all of that is a little bit like putting on a costume and living in a different time with different aesthetics and different sorts of tastes. And I hope you enjoy it.
We should say, just to clarify, that the gut strings is what a string instrument, what a guitar, what would have had until the modern era, when steel strings and wrapped, all that stuff that we have now, that's
Right.
cheaper, easier to make, but that was what the instruments were.
Hardly modern. It was actually only after the First World War that steel strings were introduced. And actually they were rationed in the Second World War because steel was a valuable commodity and people went back to gut. And so it's only that recent, really. Now, of course, we have strings which are very unnatural indeed. They are synthetic core strings, and they're wrapped with aluminum or silver or gold or something even more modern than that. And they have wonderful properties that we really appreciate on the modern violin. But I played on gut strings. And you might say, why would I play Bach with my hands tied behind my back? I'll tell you, this is my modern violin, and this is a chin rest. Very helpful, nice thing to sort of hook your neck on. This is a shoulder rest, a nice thing to sort of fill in this gap here. On the Baroque violin, there is no such thing. There's no chin rest and there's no shoulder rest, and they're not allowed. You have to really go back to the essence of what there was at that time and their approach to try to recreate it.
And you've got the instrument right there. Show us the strings a little bit closer, maybe. What kind of strings do you have on there?
Just a moment. I'm holding my modern violin.
Uh-huh. I was actually going to get you, Stephen, to show us those modern strings. And maybe
okay. They don't look any different than strings you expect. Colorful wrapping at the end. But this is my Baroque violin, which has a different look entirely. Those strings are more like, I don't know, like a nylon guitar string a little bit. And look at the scroll. That's very special. It's a lion's head with the tongue intact.
And this is the instrument that you played, what we're about to hear on.
Yes, and okay. There it is with no chin rest or shoulder rest. Yeah.
Well, this is just an audio recording, but we'll see Stephen playing and other earlier instruments and other music as the program goes. But this now is actually the first movement from the second partita for unaccompanied violin by Johann Sebastian Bach. It's amazing, Stephen, even with the limitations of the Zoom platform, we can hear the warmth and the resonance of the instrument as opposed to the brilliance of a modern violin.
Some would say it has a mellowness or a buttery warmth, and not the sort of brilliance that you associate with the modern violin. But yeah, it's the instrument that that Vivaldi wrote for, and actually the Italians liked a slightly higher tuning and a more brilliant and tension-filled intensity, I should say, to the sound. So there you go.
Well, that reflects the Italians as a people, doesn't it?
Maybe so, yeah.
As a person who has a lot of German blood. Well, being on the inside of a Bach partita like that, or a Bach sonata, is just so naturally so very, very different from playing Mozart, for example. So talk to us a little bit about playing Bach, being on the inside of a piece like that.
Well, these movements, which I sent you, including the Alamanda we listened to, they are dance movements, and they are stylized dance. They're part of a suite, and they're actually not meant to be danced to, but they follow the style of the dance in their title, and they follow the rules of that dance in terms of stress and speed and style in general. And so dances have a fairly strict pulse in general, and so you have to work around a strict pulse, while also showing a lot of creativity in pacing, and in showing the harmony and the bass line and the contrapoint in the music. And one of the challenges and the joys is being all alone with the music and really representing the entire piece on your own. And a lot of these pieces have double and triple stops to contend with, not so much that one, but the other movements in that very partita, and also the sonatas. And they really often represent several voices at once. In fact, the fugues are 3 and 4 voice fugues on one single instrument. And it might be surprising to some to know that Bach's longest fugue was not written for the organ or for the keyboard harpsichord at all. It was written for the violin, and it's the C major fugue, part of the C major sonata. It's endlessly long, and it has a very, very long subject, which makes a fugue even harder because you have to repeat that subject, what would you say, consistently, if you can, throughout the whole length of the piece, no matter which voice it comes in, or if it's upside down or right side up or backwards, or in the bass or in the soprano.
That's kind of true of some of the themes that even in the partita you played. It's like there are all these voices, and there's sometimes it's on top, sometimes it's on the bottom. This music, the music you just played, certainly does not sound mechanistic, because it's like you're following this. All you have is one line, because that's what you are. You're a violin. You have one voice playing 3 or 4 voices, as you said, and it's like you're following the line that he gives you to explore going through all those various voices, and it does need time. As my thought is, as you play this music over time, it must change. I mean, is it every time you play that particular piece, it's slightly different, or you might hear something slightly different? You might recognize a voice or a relationship between voices that you didn't quite hear before? Or is it the music that you've just been playing with, you've made some decisions?
I have made a few decisions, and I might not change my mind every time I play it, but certainly when I lay it aside for a while and come back to it fresh, I always see new things. Actually, I was telling a student who performed their Bach for the first time this week, I said, well, that's the beginning of a long, long journey. You'll have this Bach for the rest of your life, and you'll always discover something new in it. And look forward to that. This is just the first step. And I think that's how most violinists feel about that repertoire. It's sort of the core of the violinist's repertoire and a measure of a violinist's artistry. Not just technically, of course, it is very technically demanding, but also in terms of understanding and expressing the structure, and also about just engaging the colors of the violin and the variety of a single violin, which of course, that's what you're left with unaccompanied Bach. So these 6 pieces, you could almost sort of call them the Bible of violin studies, or the foundational music for a lot of modern violinists. It's interesting that they translate so well to the modern violin, and they also are so forgiving for various style approaches. You might think, well, I only want to hear that on Baroque violin, but no, Bach really can be translated to any instrument. I remember hearing at Aspen when I was a student, someone next door to me playing the Partita number 3 on tuba and doing a really good job of it too. And I thought, well, that's unlikely, but it's Bach. And so it really is everyone's music. And any style approach can be convincing, really, to me. Almost every stylistic approach, I could say, oh, I see authenticity there. I see some value. Yeah, not just one way, but many ways.
Well, our next performance is music by Mozart, a generation or two after Johann Sebastian Bach. And again, you're not playing it on a modern violin, you're playing it on a period instrument. Share with us a little bit about what we're going to hear and see in the Mozart.
Okay, this is a classical violin tuned to 430. The difference between Baroque and classical and modern violin is fairly modest if you don't know it in detail. The classical violin was really just a step in the development of the violin toward what is modern. And the modern violin has not changed much since about 1900. This violin is played with gut strings again at A430, which is again that intermediary pitch between the Baroque 440 and Baroque 415 and our modern 440. And I'm playing with a forte piano, which is the sort of piano Mozart played and composed for. One of the reasons why, as I said, it felt so natural and right when I first played with forte piano is because that was Mozart's own sound concept. The forte piano, the way it sounds, it's unusual. It might shock you a little bit. Is really what he heard in his ears, we think, and we believe. And so that's one of the inspirations of playing on these instruments, is that you're a little bit closer to the source. You're closer to the composer and the composer's aesthetics. And so, yeah, it's a beautiful piece, which is his only sonata in the minor key. And you might think, well, that's strange. Is it true? How could he have written so many sonatas and only one in minor? Well, it was at a time when sonatas were played for general entertainment and no one wanted to be depressed. People wanted to smile and enjoy themselves. They had a glass of wine and they were eating something along with listening, and no one wants to be brought down by a minor piece. But the story goes that this piece was written while he was in Paris, and he understood at that moment that his mother had just passed away back in Salzburg. And so this might very well be a sort of a a sad recollection of the loss of his mother.
Well, and this is a performance from just a month or so ago, I think you said, and it's with the forte pianist is a dear friend of ours here at this orchestra, Anton Nell, and a mutual friend of yours of mine. Anton was our first guest, but you may know or may not know, on our happy hour conversations. Um, so wonderful to see the two of you now in this performance of the first movement, the Allegro movement from the Violin Sonata number 21 by Mozart. Stephen, you found this wonderful balance of teaching and performing in your life. I know from my own experience that inevitably one feeds on the other. It's not easy to do though, and you obviously thrive on both.
I do. I think they do actually feed each other in a very healthy way. I love teaching in part because I'm around young people and youthful ideas and the endless regeneration in education. It's always possible to learn something new and to learn something in a new way and to teach in a new way. And I also feel like I bring something to the studio by performing, not just the experience of knowing how it is to go out on stage, but also the thrill of and the thrill of performing and the fear of performing, the reality of performing. I think I bring that to my students in all of its glory, you know. So I've loved it. I've really enjoyed the balance. I like variety in my life, and I have plenty of it. And so I'm happy it worked out this way.
Well, it also means you travel a great deal, something that you and I have both done a lot in our life. Is that a good thing, or is that something that maybe you'd rather not be doing?
I do love traveling. I love traveling and performing. I have hardly ever taken a vacation where my violin wasn't along and I wasn't playing, and I would still call it a vacation. If I got to play concerts in Peru, I feel like, you know, when I was working, but the rest of the time I was on vacation and I loved it. And so I've been all over the world performing and enjoying other cultures, touching down in a city where you make contact with a musician and their neighborhood and their favorite restaurants, and then you sit down and make music with them, is extremely rich experience. It's not just the music, it's also the culture, and it's all wrapped up in a beautiful way. It's really been most enjoyable. And I think probably the greatest disappointment of the last 9 months has been limited travel and no travel, and very little sharing of music and of culture. So
And
I'm
that's
looking.
true. That's true in the studio to some degree too. It's limited your ability to connect with your students to some degree.
That's true. I'm right now in my studio. Before me, you can't see, is a plexiglass partition, which separates me from the students. We wear masks, and I have an air purifier and an exhaust fan here, and plenty of wipes, plenty of spray for my hands, and still we are taking great risks by teaching in person. However, it can't be all done on Zoom, and in my opinion, it can be done pretty well, but not entirely. So.
Well, our next performance is actually two brief movements by Telemann. Anything to say about this, or should we just go right to it?
These are two of my other lovely colleagues from the group La Folia Austin Baroque. And one is a harpsichordist and the director of the group, and his name is Keith Womer. And the other is a beautiful viola da gamba player named Eric Smith. And if you look closely, you'll see that what he's playing is not a cello. It's a viola da gamba. It's shaped a little bit like a pear. And he holds the bow in an unusual way. And his sound is quite unique. And but again, it's what Telemann had in his ears when he wrote this piece, which is a trio sonata for violin, viola da gamba, and harpsichord.
music by George Philip Telemann, Trio Sonata. And Stephen, I want to turn very briefly because we do have one more piece of music and it's time to turn to some questions if Brooke has some. But I do want to share with you that this past spring, I spent a Sunday morning, I drove to Hattiesburg and rode my bike all around downtown. And I just had no idea. First of all, I discovered some amazing, of course, historic neighborhoods in downtown Hattiesburg, but I had no idea there was such a revival going on in the heart of the downtown area. And I have since learned from you and your partner, Robert, your partner of many years, that you guys had a large part to play in this revival. Can you share some of how that came to be and what that journey has been like for you?
Well, as you mentioned earlier, I've lived here in Hattiesburg for a long time. At first I rented, and I thought to myself, what can I rent? And I looked at a 1880 Victorian with 2 parlors, 5 fireplaces, 2 bathrooms, a gigantic kitchen, a wraparound porch, and stained glass windows. And I thought, okay, I'll rent that. And it was just a dream come true. When could you get that opportunity? But I rattled around in that place all alone for a little while, and I thought I better do something else. So then I thought, what else could I do in Hattiesburg that I probably couldn't do anywhere else? And I looked downtown, and there was an old drugstore from 1925, so nearly 100 years old now, for sale. And I thought, well, I wonder if that could be affordable. And so I bought it. And I decided to live in the upstairs and then to figure out what to do with the downstairs part whenever I could figure that out. And as you say, my partner helped me figure that one out. He made a sort of an art gallery out of the downstairs area, which is originally the drugstore and pharmacy part of the building. And in the upstairs, we made a living space. That was originally a storage space, essentially, in the second story of this 20s commercial structure. And I had to go and get a zoning variance. And so I went there to the office, and this very sincere man thought he was doing me a favor. He looked right at me and he said, "Dr. Redfield, nobody lives downtown." And I said, well, they oughta, and I want to. And so I'd like this zoning variance. And I sort of started, along with a couple of other people, a trend to bring people downtown to live and to work and to restore old buildings. And it's come a long way since then. I played a very small early part in it simply by showing up. And now since then, my building is in need of a little bit of sprucing up, but it's still the sweet old 1920s pharmacy it always was. It was Schwartz Pharmacy, if anyone came from Hattiesburg and would know the place. It was also called Walnut Street Pharmacy. It was known by that. And it was owned by the Schwartz family, a Jewish family, and they were known to be open for filling prescriptions on Sundays because the other pharmacies all closed on Sundays, but the Jewish pharmacy owners could run their business on Sunday. They closed on Saturday. So that was my contribution to Hattiesburg's Renaissance.
Well, it's a personal thank you, and a thank you from all of us for being part of that. It's a great place. If you haven't been in downtown Hattiesburg recently, go on a beautiful morning on a weekend, Friday or Saturday, Sunday mornings, afternoons, on a beautiful day, beautiful fall day, in fact, and just
Yeah.
beautiful. Well, Stephen, I've got to pass this off now to Brooke, who has been curating questions for us. And before I do, this is my chance to say to you, what a wonderful week we've had. I thank you once again for bringing great music to us and to me personally. And I always look forward to the next time that we can spend some time together. So thank you.
Thank you, Kraft. Thanks for the wonderful week and also for the great conversation tonight. Really appreciate it.
Brooke, are you going to have some questions for us? What do you have?
I have just a couple of things, and I'm really struck here. Urban renewal and a lovely artist. So we appreciate you spending your time yet again with us this evening. I have one question, and I saw one hand raised, but just to say we're going to do something a little bit differently tonight. You provided us with so much wonderful music, and we did pick and choose, but we still picked a lot. So instead of opening up the floor at the end of the conversation, we're going to play out with one last piece. And if anybody needs to leave exactly at 6:30, we are recording this, and we will have it available on our Facebook and on our YouTube shortly within the next couple of days, so you can always catch anything you miss. But I have a question here from Marta, our concert master, and she asked, how closely can you get the Baroque violin effect by lowering the pitch on the modern violin?
Very close indeed. And what happens is a lot of tension is removed from your instrument, and it vibrates in a whole new way, in a beautiful way, in a warm and more mellow way, instead of a sort of a tension, a strident sort of brilliant way. And another thing, I'm sure, Marta, you've tried and have told students about, is you can simply hike your bow hold up the bow a bit from the grip, and then you'll feel a different balance in your bow, and it almost can emulate the feeling and the balance of a Baroque bow, which is a little bit softer at the frog and lighter at the tip, and less of the sort of controlling grip that you'd feel down here by the frog.
I do have a Baroque bow, but I was just curious about the strengths, about the pitch.
Yes, you could say it's a compromise, because the real thing, the gut strings, is indeed something special, something to experience, but you come very, very close by simply changing the pitch.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try that.
Oh, good. I hope you do. I'll love to hear it.
Thank you.
And just before we play that last piece, I think I saw a hand raised by, was it Stephen Blaylock? Did you have a question you wanted to ask?
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, because I'm studying from Mexico, but I want to go to Mississippi for study in UMS, USM, excuse me, USM, and I don't know in this university have some program or bachelor or master in composition or something like music. Um, I just want to have uh,
counsel
counsel.
or guidance or advice.
Yeah.
USM has a website like every other university, and you can explore that website, usm.edu music, and you'll see a lot about the music program, including that we have a composer in residence, and we have a theory program for undergraduates and a theory comp program for graduate students. Mostly in composition, schools work with graduate students. They have to earn an undergraduate in theory before they go on in composition.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
We have other degrees, including graduate, both man doctorates in all the instruments. and theory as well.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
You're welcome. I encourage you to.
My name is Raul. I'm from Mexico.
The website and look at what there is attractive to you.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, I think we have a little bit
You're
of
welcome.
audio cutting in and out there. We encourage you to take a look at USM's website, certainly. Just one last question before we move to that last piece. Stephen, have you done any recordings, any studio work? Oh, I think Stephen is frozen and we've lost him. So I'm going to go ahead and share that last piece. We thank you all for being here. Please enjoy.
Hello. We're being broadcast. Oh.
Thank you, Stephen. That was Spring Sonata by Beethoven. We thank you all for being here this evening. Have a wonderful night.